Well, hello and welcome. It's Bron Watson here. I'd like to welcome you to our Stress and Burnout free online session this evening. And welcome. We're going to be looking at covering a number of areas today. We're building on the opportunities that exist in the current climate of the nursing profession. How are you feeling today? I trust you're enjoying being relaxed wherever you are and you have a glass of your favourite hot or cold beverage. For those of you who've been on the call before, you would have heard me say that. And if you've just grab yourself a pen and a paper if you need it to take some notes as we go through. And what we're going to be chatting about today is something most nurses can relate to at some stage in their nursing careers.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello and welcome. It's Bron Watson here. I'd like to welcome you to the Stress and Burnout free online session with Nurse Power this evening. Great to have you here. Thanks for so many of you coming along. Now, as you can see, I'm not sure if any of you have been on a webinar before. You will see a hand on the right-hand side of your screen there. If you need me, all you need to do is put your hand up and also type a question down the bottom. So that would be really good if you could do that for me. Anyway, welcome. What we're going to be looking at today is we're going to cover a number of sessions with stress and burnout, building on the opportunities that exist in the current climate of the nursing profession. How are you feeling? I hope you're all well and that you're relaxed wherever you are and that you have a glass of your favourite beverage, whether it be hot or cold. If you've been on any of my sessions before, you will have heard me say that because I really want you to be relaxed and enjoy what you're listening to. So grab a pen and paper if you need to and take any notes as we go along. If you do want a copy of anything that I talk about, please feel free to email me. I will give you the email address at the end of the screen. Okay, so what we're going to be chatting about today is something most nurses can relate to at some stage in their nursing careers. That sense of overwhelm or dread associated with stress and even worse, burnout. As a nurse, you are the best at caring for another's needs. We can all testify that. We've all done doubles. We've come in on our days off to help the team and sometimes you don't even get a thank you. I'm not sure about you, but I've had that happen. Anyway, to be a true champion of choice, and I have mentioned this before, I mean choosing how you respond both in words and action in a situation. We need to build a solid platform to work from. So that's what we're going to be looking at here today. We're going to be looking at, just one second. Just one second, guys. I'll be 2 seconds. Just checking that the recording. Can everybody put their hand up to see if they can hear me? See, just if you can click on your hand there, just to let me know that you can. Oh, good. Everyone can hear me. Fantastic. Okay. Anyway, let's go on. So what we're looking at today is not just the signs and symptoms of stress and burnout because, you know what, we could go on and on with those and they are very real and I am not questioning that at all. But what I actually do want to look at is some solutions for it, some things that we can do right up front to help us with these problems. So today's session will take about 40 to 45 minutes, but for the remaining 15 minutes, what I'd like you to do is actually look at reflective practice. I will explain this a little more at the end, so that'll take you up to about an hour. So if you do want to log this for your professional development, by all means you can because it does directly relate to clinical practice. Okay. So there's my picture of stress, blurred vision, nausea, dread, that pit in the stomach feeling, frustration, the good old fight and flight kicking on really, really well, which all can lead to resentment and sometimes even revenge. And that's a very strong word, so I don't say that lightly. However, this is not something we want. So what is happening in nursing today? The healthcare system has gone and continues to undergo fundamental changes worldwide. Complexities such as changing disease patterns, I'm sure you've seen that over the years, the demographic changes with ageing and obesity, rapid urbanisation in other countries, the increased expectation and demands of the consumer, the nursing shortage, the rapid changes with technology, the rising health costs, national budgets and globalisation have affected us in every area So it doesn't matter where you work, I can say that you would have been affected by this for sure. And this is not something that I'm writing, this is something that is taken from research. So what happens, of course, is that this leads to stress and burnout for us nurses who are on the floor. It actually leads to increased errors, and of course it affects job satisfaction, which is something that I will cover today. So what we're going to look at today is quickly just some statistics, what's happening currently in the nursing profession at the moment. We'll have a look at job satisfaction. We'll have a look at, sorry, I'm just trying to get my computer to work here. The definition of stress. So no doubt we can all have a definition of stress, and I will put one up for you there. We're going to look at the signs and symptoms, as I've already mentioned. We'll look at burnout. It's a very real, serious disease, not a disease, sorry, but an illness to have. One thing I do want to touch on today, though, is that it's more than this. The biggest project you are working on is actually your own life. And I've never really looked at it like that before, but I'm now realising that looking after me through self-care and wellness is really important, as you know, towards helping those who we look after. We're going to look at awareness. So I just want you to become aware of what's happening around you. We're going to look at the law of attraction. I'll explain what that means for you. We'll look at the some things you can do right now. So this is some practical things we can do for the symptoms and as well as the solutions. And then we'll wrap up the session at the end. Okay, so we all know there is a nursing shortage worldwide. It's not only recruitment, it's very much a retention, and it's a critical aspect to the nursing shortage, that it's not just finding the nurses, it's actually keeping the nurses. Okay, silly mouse, sorry. Okay, nursing professionals are getting older. There are less nurses to employ, and nurses are leaving the profession. This has been definitely proven. There are numerous researches being undertaken to examine the very issues that we're going to be talking about today. And as I've told you, mentioned in previous webinars, organisations, governments and nursing bodies are definitely focusing on improving the problem. And we here at Nurse Now, of course, are looking at starting from the inside out, the bottom up. So I believe it's the nurses on the floor who definitely need some assistance in this area. So why do we need to know this? Because it's up to you to help yourself and others to decrease the side effects and the fallout from the problems. I have mentioned this study before, that Holland, Allen and Cooper earlier this year published a paper called What Nurses Want, and there were 5 key areas that came about that are the 5 key areas, and other research papers have shown this as well internationally, of some problems that us nurses are facing. First one is there was an intention to leave nursing. 15% of those interviewed plan to leave nursing within 12 months. Satisfaction at work, only not even half trusted their employer and had limited influence over the decision making. Generally, when compared to the industry average, which sits at around 41% describing this kind of environment, 71% of nurses felt this. Performance by management was a problem. Generally, performance by management was seen as poor and not making work enjoyable. However, I personally, and I do believe, that it is up to us, that if we'd like to make work enjoyable, we have to contribute on that area as well. The fourth one was the communication, participation and the involvement at work. These are all critical indicators for a harmonious working relationship, which of course lead to job satisfaction. And we all like to work in a team that communicates well. So the findings indicated that nurses had a feeling of being undervalued with minimal influence over how their workplace was organised or managed. And we know if you are in management, if you're in senior management, you know that this is a really, really difficult area to control. However, it's how we view this, which is the issue that we're covering today. And the fifth one was for work-related stress. Nursing is demanding and it's a stressful profession. We'd all have to agree that that is just part of the role. However, the qualitative responses from the study proved that staff skill mix and a lack of staffing rated highly as key elements to workplace stress. And this, of course, influences the work culture. And we've all probably seen that or experienced that in recent times. So as you can see, these results are not surprising, and they clearly substantiate research conducted around the globe. The point here, though, is that the challenge cannot be won without individuals such as myself and such as you creating opportunity. So, of course, these challenges, some of them are just way beyond our control. However, we can control how we think, how we react, and how we act to respond to the challenges. Okay, so looking after the most important person in your patient's world is you, and this is why we at Nurse Power believe that looking after the nurses is just as important as looking after the patients. So let's have a quick look at job satisfaction. What is it? So what would you describe as job satisfaction? I'm going by a research journal article here. An individual attitude of how well individual expectations work correspond to the outcomes. So what makes a job satisfying or not satisfying depends not only on the nature of the job itself, but also on the expectations that a person has of what his or her job should provide. So the high turnover of nursing workforce is an ongoing problem. Recruitment and retention, as I've already mentioned, are complex, and they are areas of concern because obviously we can see by what job satisfaction is, it gets complicated. So there's been numerous research carried out to determine what is driving force of this problem. However, the answer is not a simple one. So according to Curry and Hill, which is also a 2012 article, strategies were employed to mitigate the problem, that the strategy should be flexible and they should be specific to the workplace. So I'd be very much interested to hear from anybody either via a question down the bottom there or even by an email, just to see is there something in your workplace that is being done to improve job satisfaction and retention. Because it must be noted the intention to change employer can be either by a professional change, such as leaving nursing, or it could be because of a professional turnover, which means that you as the employee are looking for a change in the employer to either a promotion or something like that. So the key indicators related to the high turnover of nursing staff and the nursing shortage are common across multiple countries. And basically the three areas that of concern, which are pretty similar to what we've already looked at, which is personal reasons, and that could be generation and age related, ethics and values, family and home, plus also specific career opportunities. You know, when you've been around in nursing for a while, you do want to move into something that you really choose to do. So the work environment is also, and the nature of the work affects job satisfaction, as does the economic, and we know that through the many the unions and what they're doing in terms of remuneration and pensions, both public and privately in Australia. So nursing turnover and various aspects influencing current trends. So interestingly, though, there has been a link between job satisfaction and voluntary turnover, that a nurse who has a positive disposition is more likely to take a proactive step to make a change of employment compared to someone with a negative disposition. So it's perhaps someone who is the one who is unhappy is the one who's not making the move. Very interesting. So when you look at structural empowerment, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that term before. Structural empowerment is where an organisation has resources that lead for opportunity. It could be formal and informal power plus information. So they're providing empowerment through their environment and what they provide within that environment. And when you combine that with psychological empowerment, which is what we know within nursing, that includes autonomy, competence and meaningful work, there is a correlation between the perceived change in structural empowerment and its influence on the psychological empowerment. So the key word here, guys, is the perceived change. So if you think that there's been a change in the way that your organisation is looking at with empowerment, it can affect the psychological empowerment of the nurse. So just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to see if there's... Okay. That's all right. Someone's just saying thanks for having us here. That's very nice. Okay, so we're going to keep moving on. What I want to look at next is actually work-life balance and my take on work-life balance. It's just an interesting concept, and I'd be interested to see what you think about it. Statistics here, though, are saying that 43% of nurses wish they had more training on work-life balance and personal care and wellness. So as you know, the human body is made up of the physical body, the intellect, and the spiritual being. So generally the phrase of work-life balance, it's bandied around often with many nurses wondering if it really exists, and I must admit I was like that. And this is a Bron version here. I believe that the energy of work and life are ever changing. So one day you'll need more energy for work, and then on another day you might need more energy for your life. So it's a never ever changing equilibrium. So I'd like to put an analogy to that, which is try standing on two legs. So we stand on two legs and it feels quite comfortable. So now I'd like you, if you were standing but you don't have to stand, is to stand on one leg. So when you stand on one leg, hold it for 30 seconds and see how well you can stand. And then maybe we should try standing on one leg with your eyes shut for 30 seconds. I don't know about you, I did this just recently, and depending on the strength of your ankles is depending on how well you do. But what I'd like to say is with the analogy is it's ever moving. So even though you are, you're down, you're solid on the ground, even with one leg, you're still solid, but you feel yourself moving. So the work-life balance is that we are meant to sway and we are meant to move. It's not meant to be completely stagnant and still to make a balance. So perhaps we need to think of it a bit like a set of scales that are continuously moving depending on which side of the scale that you need your energy source. Because there are times when you do need it more at work, busy days, illness, sickness, whatever. And then of course there are times that when in your own personal life you definitely need the more energy there. And these theories actually come from Abraham Maslow, and I'm sure you can all remember the hierarchy of human needs. And the two groupings, which is the deficiency needs, which is the first four, and then the growth needs. So what the hierarchy of human needs is, I'm just making sure you can remember back these days into your nursing studies, was that of course that you couldn't move up the ladder or up the scale until you'd already satisfied that first need. So the first need, as you might remember, is the physiological, which is your hunger, your thirst, your bodily comforts. So once those are met, Maslow believed you then went for safety and security to make sure you're out of danger. So this is really like back at the caveman stages. Level 3 is belongingness and love. So you affiliate with others and being accepted. And the fourth is esteem. So to achieve, be competent, gain approval and recognition. So according to Maslow, you actually needed to meet those four before you could move on to the remaining three. And the growth needs were cognitive, number 5, to know, to understand and explore. Number 6 was the aesthetic, which is the symmetry, order and the beauty of things. Then of course number 7, we all know, is self-actualization. So that of course is the self-fulfillment and to realize one's potential. So the reason why I'm mentioning Abraham Maslow here, of course, is to actually get a full work-life balance and to actually have job satisfaction, we really could actually look at the hierarchy of human needs and actually just be aware of where that sits within our own world. Okay, so now that I've left you on that note with the lovely Mr. Maslow, I'll move you on to stress. Okay, stress is a state and not an illness. I'm sure if you have heard any of my talks before, I have said this before. Stress is a condition in which the person experiences changes in the normal state of equilibrium or balance. So again, we're bringing in that work-life balance. It's the change in the equilibrium, and stress is actually a normal life event. The stressor is the stimulus or the event that causes the individual to experience the stress. It's a fact of life. The work and home environment changes constantly. And understanding the stressors that are in your life, understanding what sets off stress is really, really important, because it's how it affects emotion and behaviour, and plus having appropriate strategies or tools as a key to a resilient life. And within nursing, a lot of lot of papers will tell you about resilience, and I'm going to cover it very briefly today. However, we could be here for days talking about resilience and how to build up resilience within nursing. However, but what I want to make sure is that we understand that the health of the individual is, of course, topmost concern, as the state of stress can lead to illness, injury, and changes in behaviour. And I don't know about you, but I definitely have had that happen in years gone by. So, stress. The research to prove the significance of stress is exponential. There is so much research and literature around regarding stress and burnout within nursing. So the signs of stress in nursing are varied, and they are according to the environment, the organisation, and the type of work and specialty that you work. However, the causes of stress include the working environment. So what I'm talking about here is actually the ventilation, the lighting, and the temperature of where you work. The second cause is the interpersonal relationships. So this might include the lack of staff support or the conflict with co-workers. The very nature of nursing can be confronting. A person may become a nurse because of their desire to help those who are in need. In reality, though, the job may be far greater than expected. For those of you who have students, whether it be as a preceptor, whether it be on the floor, or an educator. I'm an educator, so I see them from the classroom into the clinical environment. You can see how this goes. You can see when a student goes into that clinical environment, they are blown away. Even sometimes I have comments like, I can't believe someone can walk that fast. And it's really true that the issues including work hours and tasks and the suffering of patients definitely influence the very nature of nursing. So the organisational factors influence the level of stress for nurses in the workplace. This might include technological advancement, the nursing shortage, so the actual staff that are provided to you in the hospital or in the facility or wherever you work, the workload, the industry competition, and the career advancement opportunities. Because sometimes there may be something that you'd like to do, and of course there may not be an opportunity for a career advancement at this stage. Okay, so number 5, the nursing shortage. We already know about that. What that does, of course, is put us all into, massive amounts of stress, and it's very real. They actually have studies that have shown that by adding an extra patient in terms of on a patient load, it increases your stress by a certain percentage. I don't know how they manage to work that out, but they do. The role of nursing. The role of nursing, there's role conflict, and its ambiguity at times is a significant causal factor. This might include the nurse's perception of being able to practice nursing in a professional manner. The expectation of the role and the actuality of this is not always occurring, and this of course causes great internal stress. And the last one is personal attributes. So what this means is that the personal attributes of each nurse influences stress. So occupational stress in nursing is to a certain extent influenced by the success of each nurse's ability to manage the factors affecting stress in the workplace. I'm sure you can relate to times when work is really full on, and there are those who look like they're just taking it in their stride, and there are others who are really struggling with the pressure. And that actually comes back to personal attributes. And nobody is wrong and nobody is right. It's just the way it is. All right, so I'll just get this rotten mouse to do the right thing. Occupational stress. Burnout. What is burnout? Burnout is a very significant illness. It's the ongoing effects of unrelieved stress after a period of time whereby a person can become both physically and psychologically unwell, which is why we now have people having stress leave. It's very, very real. It's not a joke, and it's not someone weak. It's just, sorry about this. Get this little mouse of mine to do the right thing. Okay, the list is extensive. Dr. Natalie Green, Nat, as we know, is our resident clinical psychologist here at Nurse Power, and back in March I had a great conversation with her in terms of her clinical experience, and Signs and symptoms of burnout. I'm going to put a big list up here, but I'll quickly go through them for you. Exhaustion and fatigue, increased colds and viruses, feeling distant and detached from others. My list might be a little different to what you've got on the screen. Withdrawal from colleagues and others, feelings of hopelessness. Now that's a really bad one. Increased anger and mistrust of others, gradual drop in work performance. Could be a breakdown in long-term relationships. It could be increased alcohol and other drug usage. Now study and research has been done on the level of alcohol abuse within nursing. Interesting how we are health promoters, yet we have these problems. And again, not wrong, not right, we actually don't have an opinion. It could be overreacting to minor social problems. It could be becoming accident prone. That's an interesting one. Migraines, increased risk taking, which is where you may take a risk whereas before you might have hesitated. Increased sleep disturbances, weight loss or weight gain, increased muscle tension, hypercritical attitude to organisation, colleagues and others. And what that one's about, of course, is that perhaps 3-6 months ago you may not have been so concerned. So the actual environment may not have changed, but it's your perception of that environment, and there's a hypercritical element there. There's feelings of lower self-confidence, personal achievement, so that helpless feeling comes through again and being ineffective. There's feelings of inferiority or even incompetence, and again, that's tragic. Reduced involvement with family, friends and colleagues. Absenteeism, we know definitely that's stress and burnout. Increased absenteeism through not turning up, having days off, sickness. And then, of course, there's depression, increased social avoidance and increased medical problems. So it's quite an extensive list, so thanks, Nat, for providing those for us. And what I'd like to say here, guys, is that if you are experiencing any signs of burnout, I would recommend that you get some medical advice, because it is not a joke and it is quite a significant illness. Okay, so what I'd like to put here for you is that the biggest project in place is your life. So the choice is up to you on how you play out that project and what becomes important and what doesn't. Because it's more than just self-care. It's more than just doing things to treat the symptoms. It's actually, we've got to get to the root of the cause in the first place, which is where we want to come in with the solutions. It's about the way we think, it is about resilience, and it's about self-awareness. So when an unexpected situation or an adverse event occurs, it really comes down to the perception of the nurse as to how that scenario will be interpreted. Again, the word perception. The result might either be a positive or a negative response. So according to Eager, Spark and Donovan, these are people who are very much into health promotion. Dr. Eager is a doctor with Southern Cross Uni who I work with. The translation of knowledge to behaviour is influenced by the attitudes and beliefs of the individual in regards to health enhancing behaviour. So values are thought to be derived from a wide range of thought and past experience, and they generate a particular behaviour. So a value will drive the behaviour from a general belief to a specific course of behaviour and to action. So in 1957, Festinger called this cognitive dissonance. So what that meant was that cognitively or mentally we knew education and learning, we knew what to do. And what's happening, of course, is there's a gap between the knowledge and the appropriate action and how it's influenced by the values and attitudes. And at times, the nurse may selectively focus on information that supports the previous beliefs. So we learn. I don't know about you, but I'm constantly learning, lifelong learning in nursing. It's a journey that just keeps going and going, and I love it, and I'm sure you do too. However, what's happening here, of course, is that we're learning something new, but we actually ignore the new knowledge, because knowledge alone cannot change behaviour. How you reacted to stressful triggers in the past, if you don't address how you react to the triggers, they will continue. So how can you expect to influence challenges in your life if you continue selecting the past beliefs and the way you reacted in the past. So I hope you got me there. Let me know if you didn't understand that. I'll just give you a little example here. You've been working in nursing for quite a number of years. You enjoy the ward where you work. However, there are a couple of colleagues who it appears enjoy speaking with less respect than you all deserve. You are working the afternoon shift and the rude staff member worked the morning. As you walk into the ward, this person does not greet you, does not speak with respect, and in a derogatory tone very loudly states you'd forgotten something to attend, you forgot to attend an insignificant task the day before, and this would have to be the 100th time this person has done it to you. And you ask yourself in your head, the little voice in your head speaking to you, and what is the self-talk like when you're dealing with this particular situation? What are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself it's too hard? Why am I here? Why me? Or are you telling yourself that you can do this one step at a time? And the answer to these questions is absolutely based on what you think. The way you think will influence your level of resilience to challenges. So that's why I want to briefly touch on resilience before we move on. So we'll just take a quick look at that and how it ties in with the way you think. So what is resilience? This is just an easy definition here. Resilience is the ability of the individual nurse to adjust to unexpected adverse conditions whilst remaining clear on balance, clear on a positive physical and mental well-being level, and a clear sense of purpose. So what's happening is, of course, that there's an adverse event, but you remain exactly where you're meant to be. According to McAllister and McKinnon, the importance of teaching and learning resilience is absolutely critical. As a nurse working in the health profession, it is a challenge working at breakneck speed in an often changing environment with patients and families who are often in crisis. Research tells us a typical student nurse enters the profession because they want to care for others. The self-giving of the nurse, whilst at times is a positive, selfless experience, can at other times cause suffering, stress, and burnout. Areas of concern for the individual nurse include, but are not limited to, heavy patient workload. So we touched on these at the beginning of the session. The time for patients with high needs. Do we have enough time to be able to do what we need to do? The conflict with other busy colleagues who may have a very differing agenda to yours. Skill mix and the high casual level of staffing. So this definition describes the ability of the individual to adjust to unexpected adverse events while remaining clear, on balance, remaining in a positive state and with a sense of purpose. So successful adaptation or the absence of a pathological outcome following exposure to stressful areas or traumatic life events is very much influenced by resilience. And it is a skill to adjust to adversity. Or is it an ability of a behavioural flexibility? So we call this behavioural flexibility in the fact that you can be flexible with the environment that you are working in, because as I said at the beginning, and I'm sure you all absolutely understand, is that no 2 days are ever the same. If only we could have a couple of days of some nice quiet days, but anyway, not to worry. It is the individual's ability to maintain a healthy outcome following an adverse event, and it is the ability to bounce back after the experience. It would be quite normal to, of course, expect when there are adverse events that we do respond, and as Nat would agree with me, there is a certain time when it's okay to have a bit of trauma following an event. However, it's the working through that and the resilience to move on that's important. And that leads me into the law of attraction. Not sure if any of you have heard this before, but what it means is what you focus on is what you get. And it simply means that whatever you attract into your life is whatever you think about. Your dominant thoughts will find a way to manifest. But the law of attraction gives rise to some tough questions that there doesn't seem to be a lot of good answers to. However, when you look at something which I call subjective reality, which is where we are in control of exactly what we think, and that our consciousness and what is around us is what we perceive it to be. So we are responsible for our lives, and it's something that we'd never want to lose, but it's funny that there's a lot who often deny it. As I've said many times before, you can give away control, but you never give away responsibility. The ultimate responsibility for how your life turns out rests with you and you alone. Not your parents, not your boss, not the cranky old girl that you work with, or your ex, or your society, or anyone else. You can blame whoever you wish, but there's only one who must experience or endure the results, and that's you, or that's me. I sometimes receive feedback from people stuck in the pattern of thinking about what they don't want. And this is really, really important point, guys, when it's talking about stress and burnout. They claim to be focusing on their desires religiously, and they ask me why their goals don't seem to be manifesting. Then they explain all the reasons why they believe they're having so much trouble. So I'm just going to read out a couple of them for you. I don't understand why I did not get that promotion. I'm frustrated that I never got chosen for the leadership team. I hate my job. I can't figure out why that nurse got the job and I didn't. I'm stressed out about shift work. I'm worried that I'm not good enough. I should be able to, but I can't. Why am I having so much trouble? Why me? The list could go on, but it's quite an interesting list of intentions, isn't it? And of course, this is exactly what the person is manifesting. What's missing, however, is that they haven't accepted responsibility for the results from these intentions. So that's what the law of attraction means. It brings about what you think about. To think is to ask. Every thought is an intention. So the law of attraction, your mind can't tell whether it's something real or something perceived. So it doesn't filter out what you ask for. It can't work out what is positive and what is negative. If you think about what you want, you get it. If you think about what you don't want, you get that too. The key to mastering the law of attraction is responsibility. You must accept personal responsibility for everything in your life. And I do mean everything. If you perceive it, you've manifested it. Whatever you give your attention to, that's what's going to happen. So how can you learn to stop thinking about what you don't want? You accept the responsibility for attracting it. So this is where it comes about with the awareness. We want to raise consciousness, and we want to raise the awareness that makes you more capable of successfully applying the law of attraction to get what you want. So let's look at it another way. By assuming responsibility for creating my own reality, I also assume the power to change it. I can consciously put more energy into thinking about what I do want. Some of those negative thoughts will still pop up, but I can drown them out with positive alternatives. I can imagine a pleasant outing with my kids. I have 5 boys, for those of you who don't know. When there's no external evidence to support that I'm going to have a nice outing with my children. If I keep my intentions positive, I will notice almost magically that my kids' behaviour improves because they're feeding off my intentions. So the law of attraction, if we can think of something in your own life, we need to look at what you want, not what you don't want. So it really is up to you. What if I deny responsibility for what I experience? What if I say something out there is causing these problems and I'm only noticing what is happening? Then I'm powerless to change my reality. If I focus my thoughts on what I'm already getting, I'll unknowingly activate the law of attraction to continue bringing me more of the same. I touched on this a few minutes ago. My situation will never fundamentally change. And how can I change it? If I'm thinking about what I'm already getting, then I'm having a manifesting loop. It's stable, but it's still a loop. If my life is filled with the manifestation of my desires, I'm in heaven. But if it's filled with what I don't want, I'm in a very dark place. The challenge, of course, is great. because when you are in that dark place, the pressure is on you and the feelings of helplessness invade your every waking hour. And how do I know this? Because I've been there. I'll share a story from you. 7 years ago, my family, my husband Paul and my it's now five, there was only four when we moved, boys moved to a regional area of New South Wales. It was a really positive experience for my family. My husband had landed an ideal job. The boys loved their school, their coastal life, and loved living near the beach. I, on the other hand, yearned my comfortable and safe world in Sydney. I'm a person who loves to be comfortable, so my need to remain in one place is one of my core values. However, at times it's caused me a multitude of challenges because I would rather stay in one place rather than face the fear of changing roles or organisations. I would rather complain to a colleague or two than face the reality of changing to a job that I wanted to do. Looking back, what on earth was I thinking? However, that was my state at the time. Where I worked in Sydney, I felt very valued for who I was and what I contributed to the team. And as no doubt many of you have experienced, it doesn't matter how many years experience you have or what positions you've held in previous professional lives, you have to start again in terms of earning your stripes in a new organisation. Whether it's good or bad is not the question, it just happens. Once again though, for me, the dark demon of not being good enough came up. Staffing numbers are really tough, they still are really tough. Patient numbers at times downright terrible. The full force of the nursing pressure was felt at every turn, and it was at no fault of any person, the system or the organisation. It was just the way it was. It has been in these past years where if I moved any faster, I would run, and feeling like I never quite finished the race. This, of course, caused many a sleepless night. Why was I doing this? Why was I coming home cranky or unhappy or stressed and feeling invisible and helpless and worthless? 3 years ago, on a Saturday afternoon, it was a sunny day. The weather was a really beautiful October afternoon, and it was a perfect afternoon for chatting with friends. And that's where my friend, Dr. Nat Green, changed my world in one conversation. Nat is a member of the Nurse Power team, as I've mentioned. She's a clinical psychologist and an all-round amazing lady. I learned about stuff I had never heard of, stuff so simple yet so life-changing, it was almost too good to be true. It was at this time, though, I began to search for a better way. I began to realise I could not see myself doing what I was doing for the next 20 years, and my back would not let me anyway. So the first light bulb moment for me came on when I realised it was up to me how I chose to live my life, where I worked and what I would tolerate. The second light bulb was it was up to me to make a change and to fight for me because no one else would. I began to see that putting what I needed first was not actually selfish. It didn't mean that I didn't care for my family, and it was not a negative thing. What I mean was, without caring for me, without looking after myself physically, mentally and spiritually, I couldn't be the best nurse that I wanted to be. I couldn't be the wife and the mother that I desired to be. So after 40 years of thinking that I need to care for absolutely everybody else that I came in contact with before me, I finally realised that what I was meant to do was the honourable and the right thing to do. I realised was to actually put me first, to put my health first so that I could be the best version of me for everybody else around me. And I can say categorically that you can change your life by the way you think. You must give yourself thinking time to work out exactly what you want in your career, your time away from work, as a professional and a personal life, because they are intrinsically entwined. That is the whole focus of Nurse Power, is that we are doing personal, professional development because it is so critical to us as nurses. So from that, I learnt that it was up to me. So the stress and the burnout and those levels that I experienced, I now no longer experience. And this is how it came about, the 3 C's of life: choice, chances, and change. You must make a choice to take a chance, or life will never change. It's simple as that. So that's covering a lot of the solutions for what we've been talking about, or the cause behind stress and burnout. Now I'm going to cover very briefly some quick things that you can do right now to minimise the effects of stress. So how to break the state of that feeling of overwhelm. You can have a relaxing bath, you can read a good book. You could go for a walk, or you could do some gardening. You could spend time with some friends. You can accept what cannot be changed. You could go for a concert. You could do some hobbies, cleaning, fishing, looking at old photos, spending time with friends, even spending time going shopping. How cool is that? Playing sports. So if you did play sport and you haven't for a while, get back out there. For those of you who are in the Power On group, they know, the girls and the guys in there know that I'm on a journey to learn to run, and I'm doing really well with that. And it's very exciting to be able to share that journey with those ladies and gentlemen. It's a pretty exciting place to be. So it can be done. You can do the arts and craft, as I said, listening to the music, spending time with pets. That's the pet in the house, in the Watson household. But most importantly, though, I'd like you to think about spending time for you. I'm saying 30 minutes there, but even if it was 5, it's better than none at all. So any kind of thinking time would be fantastic. What else you can do is learn to say no. This is really tricky. I know that I'm not a good person to say no, but I'm learning. I can't say that I'm over this, but I'm definitely aware of it. And being aware is fantastic because it's the beginning. I've put down here slow down on purpose. And what that means is because we run around a lot when we are at work, depending on where you work, it's still really busy, slow the pace down to a brisk walk rather than a run. Be conscious and choose to control how fast you walk and what purpose you want. Recognize your inner perfectionist. As nurses, we know that we have to get things right. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about clinically. I'm talking about in other areas. So it doesn't mean that it has to be perfect or it won't work. What it means is, and you may have seen in some of the blogs that I've done, is that we are meant to have failure because the failure makes it success. But it's fear of the failure, which is the inner perfectionist. You need to look at your stress points. So work out what are your triggers or your stressors, depending on how you want to view it. You want to work out what they are, because if you see that coming, you can have a strategy in place to break the state before it goes into the overwhelm stage. And you need to make a date with yourself every day to do that thinking time. Okay, awareness. More importantly than just doing and looking at the symptoms, what I'd really like you to do is actually look at the awareness of what's happening around you. Is it your responsibility? And should you be owning the problem? So what is happening? So what I want you to do is ask yourself, how specifically is that insert big problem here affecting you right now? And then I want you to ask it again and again until you get to the real cause of what that big problem is doing for you. If you like, send me an email. I'm more than happy to go through this with you. In an hour, it's really tough to get what we need there. So please feel free. I will give you my email address at the end. Love to hear from you, and I'm more than happy to walk you through this part. Now, Jen's just put up a question. She's got here great information, but where do I start? Okay. All right, Jen. The best place to start is by taking a look at the biggest problem you're facing right now. So when I say that, what's your biggest problem right now? And whatever came to your head right then, that's what I want you to look at. So how really is that a problem? So I'll give you an example. Let's say my biggest problem is, or your biggest problem is that you feel your manager does not listen to you. Now, how is that a problem for you? You may answer this by saying something like, I feel frustrated, I feel hurt, I don't feel part of the team. So then I ask again, so how is that a problem for you? And then you might say, I feel that I don't count, I feel inferior to my colleagues. So I ask again, how is that a problem? So how is being inferior to my colleagues a problem? Okay, you might start to think about here, well, I don't feel good enough. I don't feel I'm up to my colleagues. Okay, so now we're really getting to the problem. That really is, we're now getting to the problem because it's actually about self-worth. That the problem is. And then once we get to the problem, you then want to have a look at, if you could have it the way that you want it to be, what would it look like? So now I want you to paint the picture. I want to see what you hear, what you see, what you can smell when you're in a place where that problem is no longer there. It's an old thing and we've kicked it out. So once you've painted that picture of the no problem, what's missing between that picture that you've just painted and the reality that you've just told me about, which is self-worth? So that's what I want you to think about. That's where I want you to start when you're looking at stress and burnout. So when you really start to get over yourself and you're taking responsibility for feeling that you have, and what are you going to be willing to let go of? That's a really great place to be. It is such a really big place to begin this journey of not having that stress as a problem. By having a purpose in your life, you simply cannot burn out because your heart is aflame. And so this is where I want you to think about the reflective practice. With the reflective practice in nursing, it's something many nurses are familiar with, especially if you have studied in recent years. It's how we evaluate, assess, and plan our learning into practice. I believe it is a really good tool for nurses to use because it's assisting what's finding the solutions to the challenges in nursing today. So if you're not sure about reflective practice or you're not sure how to go about undertaking reflective practice of this session tonight, please once again email me and I'll flick you through some information on reflective practice, because there are different ways that you can go about reflecting. It's not a diary. It's not saying, dear diary, I had a crap day today. It's about the situation, what you did, how you responded, could have you responded in another way. And we're learning from that, and it's a really in a progressive way of facing those challenges on a day-to-day basis. And for the remaining part of this session, once we've knocked over, we're getting up close to an hour anyway, but once we get closer, I would like you to spend a few minutes logging that down, especially if you are logging it for professional development, because you will need to have that. If you are in Australia, you will need to have that. So I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's been great having you here. I trust you've enjoyed this session on stress and burnout. It may have taken you in a different direction to where you thought it would. However, through valuing your thoughts and perceptions, you are able to make a positive change today. So don't forget, if you do feel the session supports your professional learning, please log it. If you want, email me and I will send you through a certificate, not a problem. So now I'd like you to take some time to do the reflective practice and even take a look at the Nurse Power website. In the next little bit, I am putting up some free information and resources to support nurses to value themselves through self-care and wellness. So every day over the next little while we will be putting up information. As you can imagine, it does take a while to put together, but hey, it'll be worth it. So there's the website. If you haven't been there, you can actually log on, and there is a forum in the back that we are starting up. So it's a bit of a closed forum if you're interested. And also, if you do need to contact me, it's bron@nursepower.com.au. So thanks again. Please feel free to email if you want. Happy to talk pretty much about anything. And if you'd like any more information, email me and I'll send it through to you. So thanks for joining us this evening. I will be getting this recording out to you in the next day or so if you need to hear it and replay it, you certainly can. If you'd like a copy of the slides or any information, it'd be good to hear from you. Other than that, thanks for coming, and bye for now, and I'll talk to you soon.